Well, thank you very much, John, for what was a fantastic panel discussion there. We're going to continue that conversation by exploring the minerals value chain with the president and CEO of Alcoa, Roy Harvey, who joins us from Pittsburgh. Roy, good to see you there. I know you want.
Good morning to you, Ryan.
I know you wanted to be here. It's a shame you're not here, but you're with us in spirit. Thanks for joining. So I'm not sure if you were able to hear any of the
part of the Future Minerals Forum.
Fantastic. Well, I'm not sure how much you were able to hear, but obviously we've spent much of the last few hours talking about the minerals that are going to be critical to the green economy in the future, to EVs, to renewable energy. So I'd like to ask you to talk to us a little bit about bauxite, alumina, aluminum, the stuff that Alcoa focuses on, and where they fit in, and what that means for the demand of your products.
Absolutely, and that's a great place to start, Ryan. You know, the reason that I'm so excited to be working for Alcoa and to be part of the aluminum story is that we have this great legacy, and for Alcoa, it's 135 years since the commercialization of aluminum. This legacy of sustainability, of taking these next steps, of improving the supply chain, being part of the circular economy. And when you look at today's demand and the way that we're approaching how we drive sustainability into everything that we do, you can see how important it is today. And when we look toward the future, and exactly your question, aluminum is absolutely going to be part of how we use these critical minerals, how we use these critical metals in order to develop and drive forward, whether it's decarbonization, whether it's connecting with stakeholders, and really building this sustainable economy. And so when you step back and you think about some of the basic characteristics of what is aluminum, there's some real reasons why this is part of the future. First and foremost, let's start with the fact of how lightweight aluminum is. And so this is the reason it's been used in automotive applications and aerospace applications. It's sort of that foundational reason that drives efficiency. And thus aluminum is going to be part of so many different applications today. Connect that into infinite recyclability. So when you think about a circular economy, you think about how can you not just mine the minerals and then find ways to use them, but actually you have a way to recycle them back in, to upscale them, to turn them into that next set of sustainable products. Absolutely critical, and aluminum has been at the forefront of that story for many years. And then connect it over with the basic quality aspects of aluminum. Whether it is the durability of the products, the high strength environments where it can be used, just so many ways that you can use aluminum for all of these applications that we're seeing. And so it all starts with the consumer, connects back to the customer. And so from an Alcoa perspective and looking this as an example of the broader aluminum industry, we're trying to listen to our customers. We're trying to look at what across our stakeholders they need in order to decarbonize their pathways, in order to drive sort of this next set of sustainable minerals. And we've been trying to not only make more efficient our processes, find ways in order to produce things in different manners and smarter with less carbon content, et cetera, but also looking for ways to create products that our customers can then use. And just very briefly to mention three that we've been working to launch and have been seeing improving demand. It's what we call EcoDura, which is a 50% recycled product. It plays into this circular economy mindset, into this making sure that you have infinite recyclability of aluminum and can build those supply chain pathways to make that even more possible. Ecolum, which is a low carbon aluminum product, which at the same time is 3.5 times less carbon than the industry average. Again, this is getting more and more impetus since COP26. And then finally, EcoSource. And EcoSource to me is a pretty exciting product because it is the first and only low carbon alumina product that exists on this planet. And so when you think about, as an aluminum smelter, how you can decarbonize your supply chain pathway, the simple fact is that by choosing EcoSource, by choosing this alumina, you can take a pretty big step forward. And when put in combination with renewable energy, you can really see improvements on a decarbonized supply chain. So all of this just to illustrate how important aluminum can be, not only to what the world expects today, but more importantly, where we're going for the future and how we can address some of these serious problems and issues that we see facing the metal supply chain.
Well, fascinating stuff. We've only got 10 minutes. You mentioned COP26. That's something I hope we can get to. So, but lots to go through. Let me ask you about a little bit different side of the coin, which is that, as you're producing these materials, there's a big focus now on producing them obviously sustainably. There's less clarity as to exactly what that means and what that should look like. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think that's an important question, because when we look at how we approach sustainability, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But to me, it's pretty simple. It starts from the very beginning of how you're producing those metals, how you're producing those minerals, and then how you build sustainability into each one of those steps. And so it's not just decarbonization, and COP26 was so focused on decarbonizing and ensuring that we can find a solution to net zero, and that's something that Alcoa is we already have our ambition in place, and there's a lot of work to get there. But it's also about how you relate with your community members, with your stakeholders, how you build into your rehabilitation and reforestation programs biodiversity, how you can work in sensitive areas, because so many of these deposits happen to be in sensitive areas, how you can build the right characteristics, the right connections into the way that you do all of these different mining or refining or smelting activities. And so you need to have very much a holistic approach. And so for Alcoa, we have the opportunity to mine bauxite, to refine alumina, and to smelt aluminum. And so we can come at a lot of these problems from a supply chain perspective and really think through how can we drive improvements, and take decarbonization as an example. How can we make sure that we are building the refinery of the future, squeezing out carbon, being the most efficient refining process that we can have, and then connect that with a zero carbon solution, what we call ELYSIS, which is a joint venture, and actually find ways to eliminate the carbon anode and move to an inert anode. And so that decarbonization demonstrates that if you work across the supply chain, you can drive towards this holistic solution. But you need that across the board. You need that in whether you're operating in Guinea or Australia or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You need to make sure that you're building these same sustainability aspects and these connections that you're making with your stakeholders and with these technological improvements and these innovations, so that you can essentially build this in, so that when consumers are buying their consumer electronics, or when your customers are thinking about their supply chain, they know that they have a credible source, that it has a process where they can trust and understand all of these different aspects have been built into that sustainable product.
Real quickly, Roy, I mean, one of the big issues right now, obviously innovation is a big part of doing what you're talking about, but it isn't something that we're seeing right across the industry. So how do you scale up the innovation that's necessary to do what you're describing right across the industry, as opposed to it just being a company by company level?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge that's facing us. And we have a lot of global forums where we're trying to solve some of these problems. And of course, I speak for Alcoa, but I also have an opportunity to speak for the aluminum industry. It's our role to make sure that we're developing and driving these improvements in-house, but also looking for ways to help redefine the industry and redefine what is expected in order to make these solutions viable, not only from a carbon standpoint, as an example, but also from an economic standpoint. And then find ways to help use these technologies more universally, whether it's through commercialization, whether it's through licensing of the specific products, et cetera. And so if you define correctly what is the destination and where you want to go, and you demonstrate what a zero carbon or a low carbon product can look like, or a sustainably mined and produced product, you can help to set that target. You can then help to drive the innovations into the process and find ways to be able to commercialize those and help others to not only meet the target, but also find a way in order to produce. And so that's all the kind of things that we're thinking about from an Alcoa perspective as we look at each of these pieces of the value chain and try and take a big leap forward, because a lot of this science is being developed as we speak. And there's simply no time to wait. There's no chance to not be developing that next set of sustainable solutions, given how quickly the world is moving.
So leaving aside, you obviously made the case very well for bauxite, alumina, and aluminum as being critical minerals in the future. That point taken, what other minerals do you see as critical to the new economy and this energy transition? I was asking this question earlier today to Mark Bristow, and he was saying, look, copper, because it's always going to be needed. Because one of the problems you run into with, for example, the EV technology, the battery technology, is the technology we have today and the minerals that are needed for that technology, well, that technology is likely to change. What's your take? Name some minerals that you think are really important to focus on going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's coming from an aluminum company perspective, it's always hard to step out of the aluminum and try and look more broadly. To answer your question very simply, I don't think it's going to be a different response than what you had from Mr. Bristow. In the end, copper is going to be important. Rare earth minerals is going to be important. And as I was hearing in the forum prior to our discussion, Ryan, the ability to not only find these minerals, but find a way in order to produce them and connect them into whether it's the European Union or the United States or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, find a way to connect them and feel that you have that sustainable solution and can understand the value chain leading up to production of those metals and minerals is what's going to be so important. And so from our perspective, we work with the Aluminum Stewardship Initiative, which is very specifically on the aluminum side, the International Council on Metals and Mining, which helps to look more at mining practices in general. These types of certification mechanisms, connections, not only help to make sure that you have the right metals for the future, which was your question, but also make sure that you have that right certification process. And we're proud to form part of it, and we're proud to help define what good looks like, which in the end, it's hard to predict what is the right metal for the future, but you can make sure that you're building sustainability into whatever metal becomes sort of that next step of the sustainability value chain.
If you think of the original founders of Alcoa, the group of entrepreneurs in Pittsburgh back in 1888, and you were to transport them to 2022, what do you think they would do differently about how they approached business and what they're producing?
No, that's a great question, Ryan. In fact, I think about it quite a bit. When we have the privilege as Alcoa, our founder was Charles Martin Hall, who helped to create this manufacturing process that created a way to economically produce aluminum. And when he was putting that process into place, he was using a carbon anode. And that carbon anode is what creates the direct emissions in the electrolytic smelting process that continues to exist today, what we call conventional technology. And you've seen improvements, you've seen those electrolytic cells get bigger and bigger, but you've not been able to solve that carbon problem. He had envisioned 135 years ago a way to use an inert anode as well, but was never able to make the science solve because material science simply wasn't there. So looking to 2022, looking at sort of this challenge that he'd identified and that we've been working on now for a few decades, we are actually at the cusp of being able to eliminate that carbon anode through our process called ELYSIS and actually drive to this zero carbon future of aluminum smelting. And then, of course, when paired with the refinery of the future, when paired with a lot of these new electric mining methods that are being developed today, you can actually have a decarbonized flow path that not only addresses what the world is looking at from a climate change perspective, but is a more efficient and a better outcome. And so to me, standing in the shoes of Charles Martin Hall, having this opportunity to continue his innovations, solving this problem that he had back at the very beginning, it's just a real privilege to be part of the story. Thank you, Ryan.
Roy, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Roy. I know you wanted to be here. Let's give it up for Roy and have a wonderful day there in Pittsburgh.